Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Her husband gave her anti-dandruff shampoo while his mistress got a brand new smartphone. But the wife had her own unforgettable surprise. The smartphone chimed, dutifully announcing an incoming message. The red-haired woman, about to slice an avocado, glanced at the screen and read two short sentences from the contact labeled husband. Jasmine, I'll be late. Have dinner without me. With a sigh, the woman set the exotic fruit aside. The desire to spoil her husband by preparing his favorite avocado and shrimp dishes for dinner vanished instantly. Her appetite disappeared too. The excitement of testing out a new salad recipe for the upcoming holidays evaporated, as if it had never been there. Tomorrow would mark the 7th anniversary of her fateful meeting with Jose. And at the end of the month, New Year's Eve. Jasmine felt a wave of sadness. The message left a bitter aftertaste. She decided not to waste time peeling the shrimp, which had already been cooked and were waiting in a large bowl. Unfortunately, messages like this had become a habit, making her suspect that Jose was no longer faithful and was spending his time with another woman. Otherwise, why had she, his lawful wife, been dining alone for almost 6 months, her only company the murmuring laptop? Trying to distract herself while waiting for her husband, Jasmine decided to start preparing for the approaching holiday. After all, if she was feeling down, it wouldn't fix itself. She had to at least try to lift her spirits. A full house cleaning session felt too daunting, so she left that for the weekend. But why not start creating a festive atmosphere right now? Perhaps by sorting through the decorations for the upcoming celebration? Over 7 years of marriage, it had become somewhat of a tradition for her and Jose to decorate the apartment together. But who knew when Jose would find time in his schedule for that? The boxes with decorations and their modest yet beautiful artificial Christmas tree were stored in the closet on their enclosed balcony. Shortly after their wedding and moving into the apartment, originally Jasmine's mother's, Jose had set up something of a combined office and workshop there, as he liked to call it. However, Jasmine could count on one hand the number of times her husband had actually worked with the jigsaw he'd raved about endlessly. More often than not, he simply sat in his comfortable chair, browsing the internet or playing endless video game missions. Lately, though, even that improvised office, just like Jose's legal wife, had been spending more and more time alone. Her husband came home late, ate dinner, and went straight to bed. Jasmine shook her head to banish the gloomy thoughts, tied her hair into a ponytail, and got to work. She decided to take out the Christmas tree later, but the ornaments needed sorting. Many were old, dating back to her childhood. And even though she always packed them carefully, there were always unfortunate losses. She gently pulled out a wooden box, its sides marked with red exclamation points. Her father had painted them himself, warning the family to handle the fragile contents with care. A wave of sadness washed over her. Oh, Dad! He had taken such care to protect the ornaments from breaking, yet he had shattered their once happy family so recklessly. Jasmine opened the box and, as she sifted through the vintage decorations, felt as if she were traveling back in time. When the girls were 15 and 14, their father announced right in front of them that he had decided to leave their mother for another woman. The news was a shock to the girls and a devastating blow to their mother. Especially considering that Sarah, the woman he was leaving for, had been in their home many times and was considered a family friend. In the past, she had been a university classmate of their father. When Maria gave birth to Jasmine and, a year later, to Alona, she took a job at a kindergarten to secure spots for her children. Her former classmate, now the head of the family, worked at a factory that had managed to survive all the economic crises. The factory was far away, and Pablo, whom Sarah had known since their university days and later out of sheer habit, gave her rides to and from work almost every day. Sarah, always cheerful and sociable, skillfully hid her interest in her married friend. She came to their home as a mutual friend, played with Jasmine and Alona, but in the end, she took their father away and plunged their mother into a deep pit of despair. Maria was furious, at her ex-husband, at her former friend, and at herself. She would often freeze in the middle of the kitchen or another room, staring into space, silently moving her lips as if carrying on an endless, important conversation. She refused to hear anything about Pablo and Sarah. And if her daughters dared to bring up their father, she never held back in her expressions about him. Maria got rid of everything connected to the traitor. The only thing that remained was this wooden box. It had once been used to send a package and had held some of their glass Christmas ornaments. Though, with each passing year, fewer of those ornaments remained. But that wasn't the worst part. What was far more painful was that their mother had completely lost her faith in men. Jasmine remembered her constant warnings that even in family life, one could rely only on themselves, even when neither she nor her sister had any serious relationships on the horizon yet. Staring past her daughters with a distant, clouded gaze, Maria would repeat, "You can't live with your heart wide open. At the very least, don't welcome anyone into your home. Don't get too close to your friends, or you might get stabbed in the back. And most importantly, always have a secret stash of money your husband knows nothing about." To their mother's great dismay, as soon as Alona turned 18, she moved in with her boyfriend. The scandal was huge. Even now, Jasmine shuddered at the memory of her mother screaming at her younger daughter, predicting that she would be used and abandoned. Alona, in response, declared that a marriage certificate was no guarantee of happiness and that when love and a family was gone, nothing could keep a cheating husband from straying. Maria, unprepared for such bold defiance from her now adult daughter, completely lost control and erupted into a bitter family argument. Alona left, and despite her mother's grim predictions, she was happy with her partner, though they never rushed to make their relationship official. Maria, meanwhile, directed all her attention and care toward her older daughter. Her communication with Alona almost entirely ceased as she mentally placed her among the traitors. Jasmine spent a lot of time talking to her mother, trying to soften her heart. And little by little, Maria began to thaw. But the process was slow, until a disaster struck that was far worse than her daughter's unmarried cohabitation. After being diagnosed with a serious illness, Maria desperately sought to mend her relationship with Alona. Of course, most of the responsibility for Maria's care fell on Jasmine's shoulders. But even Alona, in her own way, supported their mother, sending money, transferring large sums to her older sister to help. Maria smiled through the pain but tried to stay strong. On one of the rare days when she had enough strength, she packed everything that reminded her of her traitorous husband into bags and asked Jasmine to take it all to the trash containers. The only thing she spared was the box of Christmas ornaments. It was like a bridge to the past, a past filled with happiness. Though Jasmine felt it was time to burn that bridge, at the very least, to transfer the ornaments that held sentimental value into another box. The sisters agreed on one thing: Maria's illness had been greatly influenced by the stress she endured. 10 years ago, the disease had retreated thanks to treatment and the unwavering support of her daughters. But by the time Jasmine was preparing to marry Jose, the illness had already returned. A weakened Maria tried to dissuade her from taking that step. Her main objection to Jose? His looks. "Oh, my dear, why do you need such a dandy? A handsome husband is always a danger. You might end up alone, raising children by yourself. And honestly, that's not even the worst outcome. It's much sadder if you're left alone with a broken heart. Just don't rush into having kids. Take a good look at Jose. He's very attractive, and there will be plenty of women who want a man like him." Alona, like their mother, advised caution. "Jasmine, make sure that if you get divorced, this guy doesn't walk away with anything. I live with my partner without a marriage certificate, and that's partially for practical reasons." When Maria realized that her daughter was determined to marry Jose, she didn't cause any scenes or scandals. First, she simply didn't have the strength for it. And second, she feared history would repeat itself, as it had with Alona. Maria knew they might not have time for reconciliation if she alienated Jasmine now. So, instead, she approached her with a different request. "My dear, forgive my grumbling, you understand why. We learn from our mistakes. Marry your Jose and be happy. But I have one favor to ask. Live here with me in this apartment. I don't have much time left. Jasmine tried to persuade her otherwise, but Maria only shook her head sadly, unmoved by her daughter's arguments. Despite all their efforts, Maria couldn't overcome the relapse. After a year and a half of fighting, she passed away. Throughout that difficult period, Jose never once complained about his wife practically moving into her dying mother's room. Unlike David, Alona's partner, who never even visited Maria, Jose was always there, helping drive her to treatments, being a constant pillar of support for both Jasmine and her sister. When the battle was finally lost, it was Jose who took care of all the paperwork and arrangements for Maria's final farewell. David, to his credit, was also useful. Being a man of athletic build, he was able to discreetly but firmly remove Pablo and Sarah from the funeral. No one knew how they had found out about Maria's passing, but their presence was not welcome. However, on that sorrowful day, something else strange happened. Right after the memorial, Jose's mother settled onto the couch in Jasmine's apartment and casually brought up the future. Now that you've inherited the apartment, it's time to start planning for a baby. The second room is free, and there's nothing stopping you anymore. Though, even better, you could sell this place and find something in a nicer neighborhood. Shocked, Jasmine said nothing, though she was never one to shy away from speaking her mind. Every fiber of her being wanted to tell her audacious mother-in-law to go chase butterflies in the countryside. But that time, Jose, sensing her mood, quickly changed the subject. Yet Antonina didn't drop her ideas. She continued to regularly comment on how unfortunate it was that Jasmine lived in such a bad neighborhood. Then she sighed about how it was time for her to be taking care of grandchildren, but they still hadn't given her that joy. Jasmine complained to her sister, and Alona wisely advised her. It's not sensible to sell this apartment and buy a new one, especially since your mother-in-law's arguments are rather weak. The neighborhood here is fine. There's a park nearby, and the transport connections are great. And, if you think about it, there's a kindergarten and school nearby too. But that's not the most important thing. A new home would be jointly owned property, and in the worst case, you'd have to divide it. Why are you always thinking about the worst, Alona? Jose gives me no reason to think about a divorce. Then don't. But don't forget about your own interests. Take my David, for example. Do you think he would marry me so easily? Not at all. At some point, David relaxed and told me that his father made him swear that he would never allow an official marriage so that, in case anything happened, the family's money and property wouldn't slip away. Jasmine was shocked by her sister's confession and asked, stunned, "And how did you continue to communicate with David's family and stay with him after such a revelation?" I wanted to be offended and proudly leave him. But after thinking it over and studying the legal aspects, I realized I love him so much that I'm willing to tolerate his calculating father. David knows I don't like being just a girlfriend, and he tries to make up for it somehow. You don't have to return gifts in a divorce, so he made me a gift deed for the car and constantly gives me jewelry. As for your cunning mother-in-law, who pulls all these tricks, you can blame it on me. Though I have no interest in this modest two-room apartment, you said I won't back down from my own. I have the legal right to my share of the inheritance, and I'm not going to give it up, nor will I agree to sell it for less than the market price. This way, it'll be easier for you to get rid of your viper of a mother-in-law, and it'll look like it's not your fault. As for me, I'll endure her huffing and angry looks a few times a year. Lost in less than joyful memories, Jasmine had managed to look through the fragile Christmas ornaments and was relieved that there had been no more losses. Carefully putting the ornaments back in the box, she tried to convince herself that it was a good sign, showing that everything was fine in her family. But her mind protested. Of course, in the past, Jasmine hadn't believed her mother's sad predictions about the treacherous nature of all men, nor the warnings from her sister. What should she do in this situation? More and more signs pointed to Jose finding a new love. Could it be that her mother and Alona were right and predicted the sad ending to this seemingly eternal love story? Was she also going to experience the betrayal of her beloved? Had Jose also succumbed to temptation and started an affair? What had she, and thousands, if not millions, of women who had gone through this, done wrong? Lost in thought over this difficult and painful issue, Jasmine put the box aside and began pulling out a large garland in its branded packaging. Somehow, she nudged the bottom box. The box fell to the floor and opened, even though the woman was sure she had taped every container with Scotch tape on top. Gently placing the garland on the chair, she bent down to pick up the scattered decoration and froze for a second in astonishment. On the floor, among tinsel and plastic ornaments, was a gift-wrapped paper bag with beautiful flowers on it. This find intrigued her with its mystery, but also explained why the box had been left untapped. It seemed that Jose had peeled off the tape to hide the gift. However, he couldn't have imagined that the secret would be revealed because his wife decided to sort through the Christmas decorations in early December. After hesitating for a few seconds, Jasmine decided she could do without the surprise, but would satisfy her curiosity. She opened the bag and pulled out a small greeting card that read "To my beloved," and a box with the name of a rather expensive smartphone printed on it. Jasmine felt a warm and light sensation in her chest. Her suspicions about her husband's unfaithfulness were unfounded. It turned out that everything was quite different. Jose had noticed that her old smartphone was increasingly malfunctioning and decided to give her a thoughtful and useful gift. Maybe not for Christmas, but earlier, like tomorrow, the anniversary of their first meeting. In that case, she would need to carefully return the packaging of the Christmas decorations to their original places so that her husband wouldn't suspect that his hiding spot had been discovered. After carefully placing everything as it had been, Jasmine hurried to the kitchen. Of course, she couldn't show Jose that she knew about his surprise. But she could, and should, spoil him, just as she had planned before receiving the SMS. Looking forward to the joy, the woman got to work, reflecting on how sometimes everything isn't quite as it seems at first glance. Perhaps Jose's budget had been severely impacted by the purchase of the expensive smartphone, and now he had to work extra hours. That was the reason for his late returns home. She had already conjured up the most depressing version of events in her mind. Enthusiastically working on testing a new recipe, she imagined her husband's joy and anticipated the pleasant family dinner that awaited them. Jose returned closer to midnight, and after spending about 15 minutes in the bathroom, he finally appeared in the kitchen. Seeing Jasmine, the man forced a smile and sarcastically asked, "What, for a change, you decided to play the role of a caring mommy instead of a grumpy wife?" Jasmine felt how the joke unpleasantly touched her. However, she tried not to show it and kept the playful tone with him. "Yes, I won't torture you with questions about how your day went. Instead, I'll make you dinner." Jasmine placed the salad in a nice plate for her husband and set the sauce aside. She put the mashed potatoes and cutlet in the microwave to heat. However, Jose's reaction to the meal was a complete surprise to Jasmine. After quickly eating almost half of the dinner, he looked at his wife and started grumbling. The dish could have been prepared more economically. "What, wasn't it tasty?" Jasmine asked with a smile, busy with the thought that she needed to act surprised when she received the smartphone. "It's tasty, of course, but shrimp and avocado, those are expensive ingredients. Especially not for a holiday, just for a regular dinner. Honestly, I think you've been spending too much on food." The man, continuing to devour the treat offered to him, fell silent for a while. But after tea, he began to express his dissatisfaction again, this time with Jasmine, who had placed a box of large pastries on the table. "You'd be better off baking at home," he said. "I can pretty much guess how much all this cost. For the money you spent on these 4 tiny little pastries, you could probably bake a whole kilogram of decent cookies. Do you think you married an oligarch? What's with these bourgeois habits? You came up with the idea of buying pastries from pastry shops. They don't even use certified ingredients there. We're practically flushing everything we earn down the drain. Jasmine, and in the future, we'll be supporting pharmaceutical companies because of your laziness and wastefulness." Jasmine didn't take his grumbling seriously and even mentally admired how skillfully her husband was pretending to be strict. But in real life, she couldn't have guessed that he was just playing a role. Remembering the gift she had found, she felt a pleasant anticipation for exploring and setting up the new smartphone and decided to play along with Jose's act. Exaggerating a bit, Jasmine praised him. "How economical you are. With you, no financial crisis will ever scare us." Jasmine tried to guess when Jose would give her the gift, but she hoped he would save the anniversary congratulations for the next evening. After all, the gift she had prepared for him, a fairly expensive set of balance rigs for ice fishing, now seemed like a trivial thing. She wanted to accompany this present with a special dinner. While the woman was thinking about what to make besides the salad to spoil her husband, Jose reached the peak of his complaints and demanded, "You know what, Jasmine, let's start collecting receipts for all purchases. Then, maybe once a week, we'll sit down together and analyze what you grabbed at the store without thinking and what we could have easily done without. With this approach of yours, we're going to be stuck in this tiny apartment forever. If you didn't spend so much on food, we could have improved our living situation over the years." Jasmine frowned. In the past year and a half, the topic of buying a new apartment had come up almost daily, and although Jasmine knew that the initiative was generally coming from her mother-in-law, not from her husband, her irritation was growing. But she didn't want to spoil the mood before the holiday, so she just cleared the dirty dishes from the table and, kissing her husband, went to bed. "In a few minutes, we'll be celebrating the anniversary of our meeting, and I hope you'll join me soon." Jose was surprised by her reaction to his proposal and replied in confusion. Yeah, you go ahead. I'll have some more coffee. This pastry is really tasty." Jasmine, dressed in an elegant nightgown, waited for her husband to come to the bedroom, but she fell asleep before he arrived. When she woke up in the morning, she found a dirty coffee cup and a plate with food remnants in the kitchen, which indicated that Jose had already left for work. Now, the conversation about unnecessary spending seemed insignificant to her, and she tried to focus on the upcoming pleasant evening. However, it was difficult to concentrate. Fortunately, there was very little work at the atelier, and Jasmine was able to meticulously plan the upcoming quiet family celebration for two. She smiled as she remembered how strictly Jose had scolded her for her excessive food expenses and decided to spoil him once again. After all, she had to reward him for such a generous gift he was planning to give her. However, for Jasmine, the importance of the smartphone wasn't in its price or its prestige, but in what her husband was demonstrating with this present. She decided not to worry about the cost and bought some trout steaks to bake for dinner with vegetables. As soon as lunch break arrived, she rushed to the central covered market, even though the prices there weren't exactly friendly. But the selection was definitely better than at the nearby supermarket. The market was only 5 stops away from her workplace, so there was plenty of time during the lunch break to go there and back. Jasmine was already returning to the atelier with her purchases when the bus she was on, carrying her haul and various herbs, suddenly broke down halfway. She evaluated the number of passengers at the nearest stop and the time left before her lunch break ended and decided not to wait for the bus, but to call a taxi. However, as if by law of perversity, her smartphone, as it often did, suddenly froze. Trying to cheer herself up by thinking that she would have a new, reliable phone by the evening, she hurried to work on foot. To shorten the route, she turned onto the main street, where public transport passed, and through the large window of a prestigious pastry shop, located in a quiet and cozy spot, she suddenly noticed the silhouette of her husband. Jasmine was about to enter and say hello, but froze, rooted to the spot. Jose was enjoying a pastry with a blonde woman with a beautiful haircut. On the table in front of the stranger was a bouquet of flowers, which Jasmine had already seen yesterday. This could have been written off as a simple coincidence, but the blonde was also holding the new smartphone and was enthusiastically showing something to Jose, laughing at his words in response. "What are you doing, standing in the middle of the street like a post?" a disgruntled male voice asked. Someone giggled. "Are you frozen or what?" A rough hand shoved Jasmine aside, but she paid no attention and continued to watch her husband and the blonde. They were chatting animatedly. The stranger was showing Jose something on the gadget screen and laughing in response to his words. Jasmine didn't know what to do. She was afraid that entering the cafe would make her look completely foolish or that she would do something irreversible. But staying outside, waiting for her husband to finish his meeting, was almost impossible. Suddenly, her smartphone, which had come back to life, interrupted her thoughts. Her boss, in an annoyed tone, asked, "Are you planning to come back to work? Your client is waiting for you." Jasmine glanced at the screen. There were still 10 minutes left before lunch was over. Well, her strict boss seemed to be unconcerned with such trivial matters and loudly commanded, "Hurry up and get back to work. The sooner you appear, the better." Then, lowering her voice, likely so the client wouldn't hear, her boss asked more friendly, "Jasmine, help me out. The headmistress of the school where my rascal goes, she showed up. You know, I never miss an opportunity." The upset woman managed to summon a smile. Yes, Francisca Dolores could sometimes be overly strict, especially in front of clients, but she really did always try to help her workers. Besides, it was pointless and even dangerous to keep standing by the window, watching Jose calmly chatting with some blonde. Her nerves could snap, and that could lead to the most unpredictable consequences. So Jasmine, without hesitation, responded, "Okay, Francisca, I'll be there in 5 minutes." Throwing one last glance at the cafe where her husband was sitting, she quickly headed to work. No matter what dramas were unfolding in her life, Jasmine always tried to remain professional. Her beloved job served as one of the anchors, keeping her reasonably grounded and preventing her from spiraling into despair. While discussing the details of the order with her client, Jasmine tried to push thoughts of Jose's strange meeting with the unknown woman out of her mind. But it was nearly impossible. She was jotting down the client's requests, making changes to the original technical specifications, when she suddenly heard a sharp, annoying voice. "Are you even listening to me? What is this you've done? I clearly said, sleeves with ruffles, not a neckline. This is completely off. Stop daydreaming and doing things your own way." The client wrinkled her nose in displeasure and grumbled, "Ugh, and why does it smell like fish here? This feels more like a market than a boutique." Only after this comment did Jasmine, who had mindlessly dropped the bag on the floor, remember the groceries. She apologized, picked up the bag, and quickly placed it in a small refrigerator. When Jasmine returned to the office, her manager was already standing next to the client, trying to calm her down. After all the client's requests were carefully recorded and she left, her steps echoing like they were on parade, Francisca turned to Jasmine. "I think it's better if you go home today. Your mind is too far away. I hope tomorrow you'll be more focused, remembering that our busy season starts." Thanking her manager, Jasmine began to gather her things. If it hadn't been for Francisca, she would have forgotten about the cursed bag in the fridge. Jasmine wasn't in a hurry to go home. It seemed to her that being outside, where the light frost was starting to set in, would help her analyze everything she had seen without too many emotions. Just as she was about to make her decision to go to Jose's office and demand an explanation about his meeting with the blonde, her sister called. Alona, asking if her older sister was busy, began to congratulate her on the anniversary of her meeting with her husband and wished her all the best. "Jasmine, can you hear me? Are you still busy and only half listening while I'm here talking my head off?" Jasmine didn't hide her thoughts. She shared her suspicions with her sister that Jose might be cheating on her and told her about her desire to suddenly show up at his office and cause a scene. After a while, her younger sister began to reflect. "In principle, I wouldn't act impulsively if I were you. As you said, your Jose was chatting quite animatedly with that stranger, and she was fiddling with a smartphone. It seems to me that this whole situation is entirely within the bounds of decency. Not defending Jose, but to be fair, he could have asked that blonde for help setting up the smartphone he bought for you. Seems like a reasonable explanation, I think." And the only place to set up a smartphone is in a cafe," Jasmine remarked bitterly. "I understand your sarcasm, but maybe it was just a business meeting. The bag could be a mere coincidence, and the phone could actually belong to that blonde." I think there's no point in torturing yourself with suspicions and doubts. In any case, things will become clear in the evening. Dinner will sort everything out. If I were you, I'd just calmly head home, especially with those extra few hours you have, thanks to your considerate boss. Maybe, Jasmine responded. I think I will do that. After saying goodbye to her sister, Jasmine felt more confident as she made her way home. While the bath was running, she marinated the fish steaks and placed the bottle of sparkling wine, a gift for the pleased client, in the fridge. Driven by curiosity, Jasmine couldn't resist checking her husband's hiding place. However, after that, her suspicions only grew stronger as the bag with the flowers in the box was gone. Of course, this disappearance could have had a completely innocent and rational explanation, but her festive mood vanished completely. Not even her bath with her favorite products helped improve it. But during the cooking process, Jasmine gradually started to relax. After all, soon enough, everything would be cleared up. The kitchen was filled with mouth-watering aromas, and the act of creating gave her a sense of control over her own life. Jose came home quite early, and after handing Jasmine a single red rose and a cosmetic set with shampoo and conditioner, clearly bought at the nearest chain store, he washed his hands and sat down at the table. Jasmine barely suppressed a gasp of disappointment when she didn't receive the familiar bag with the smartphone inside. But there was still hope that he would tell her that he had been playing a joke on her. However, once again, he managed to surprise her, and again, unpleasantly. Seeing the trout and the bottle of Italian sparkling wine on the table, he raised an eyebrow in displeasure and, instead of offering congratulations, asked seriously, "We talked about living more frugally yesterday. What's all this wastefulness? Trout is clearly not cheap, and this wine certainly didn't come cheap either. Where are the receipts, Jasmine? Come on, write down your expenses right now so you don't forget anything. You've started acting like a rich woman, but I always end up paying for everything in the end." Jasmine was shocked, but she didn't stay silent and got upset. Note, I earn too, and quite well. I pay for utilities myself. I don't beg you for money for cosmetics or other female needs. Remind me, what exactly do you pay for, Jose? The man, tearing his eyes away from the fish steak, answered calmly. Who replaced the faucet in the kitchen? Oh, now you remember, Jasmine laughed, though she wasn't laughing at all. I must have reminded you about that damn faucet for at least 6 months, if not more. Well, you know I've been very busy. Jose tried to make an excuse, realizing his wife was seriously upset and attempting to soften her mood. Thank you, everything turned out very tasty. Okay, for the holiday's sake, we can postpone the expense record keeping. I admit, it's not the time for that now. Besides, I promised Mom I'd help her, so I have to go. Why today? Doesn't Antonina know we're celebrating today? Well, she had some problems, and I promised to stop by and help. You know, with this and that. Mom is sacred. As a good son, I have to support her. I'll just put a couple of pieces of fish in a container and run to spoil my mom. Jasmine was so confused that she even forgot to give her husband her gift. The package with the sparkles remained in the drawer with all the kitchen odds and ends. Jose, moving the remaining fish steaks into a container, grabbed the bottle of sparkling wine from the table, stuffed everything into Jasmine's favorite shopper bag, the one she had sewn herself, and headed toward the hallway. Jasmine, feeling more and more upset, noted that her husband didn't even have the decency to kiss her goodbye. As he reached the door, Jose called out from the hallway. Don't wait up for me, I probably won't be back soon. I'll probably have to stay at Mom's, and in the morning, I'll go straight to work from there. Of course, it'll take time to finish off a bottle of wine, Jasmine whispered quietly to herself, feeling deeply offended by her husband's fussiness and lies. It seemed like the end of her marriage was on the horizon. The evening had put everything in its place. It was clear now, she was not his beloved. She was not the one he had bought the expensive smartphone for, the one she had seen earlier in the hands of that strange woman. What hurt the most wasn't that Jose had betrayed the family. The deceived woman felt humiliated by the skillful lies and pretense of her husband. Naturally, she couldn't believe that Jose had gone to his mother's. There was no valid argument in favor of this innocent version of his escape from their anniversary. On the contrary, everything screamed that her husband had found another woman, the one he was bringing all the carefully prepared treats to. That blonde was probably preparing to thank him for the smartphone, and after that, they would enjoy the seafood and refresh themselves with the sparkling wine. Hearing the sound of the door closing and the lift whisking her husband away to his adventures, Jasmine called Alona, her only close family member, and briefly updated her. "Well, it looks like divorce is creeping up on me, and I didn't even have a clue. The situation is crystal clear. Jose, under the pretext of visiting his mom, has rushed off to his mistress. I'm more than sure about this. You know, I almost find it funny right now. He was so serious, even stern, lecturing me about wastefulness, but he didn't forget to take with him the expensive steaks, the sparkling wine, the very things he scolded me for. The smartphone that I thought was a gift for our anniversary looks like it was already given to the other woman. And what did I get? A wilted flower, dandruff shampoo, which I don't need, and conditioner. Well, Jasmine, I don't even know what to say. Of course, you could call Antonina or even go visit her to clear things up. Why bother, Alona? To hear more lies? I'm sure my mother-in-law will cover up Jose's escapades and come up with some excuse. No, I don't want to see or hear Antonina twisting the truth." Alona disagreed. "Well, as far as I know, your mother-in-law won't try to justify him. It's more likely you should go on the offensive. The best defense is a good offense. You'll still have to answer for why your wonderful Jose disappeared on your wedding anniversary." Jasmine smirked. "Exactly. Just like her son. He accused me of being wasteful, but now he's off having fun on the side and, apparently, throwing money around like some big-shot oligarch. Unbelievable. Now he's demanding receipts from me. But it's unclear who he's handing a gift worth almost 100,000 rubles, or even more. Yeah, looks like your Jose turned out to be a real jerk. I mean, if someone bleats in one way but behaves like a goat, then that's what they are, a goat." Although Jasmine's hope for a long and happy marriage with Jose had been shattered, she felt no pain either from shock or hurt, and was even surprised when her sister offered to come over. "Why, Alona? It's not necessary. Trust me, I'm not going to cry or do anything worse. Honestly, there's no point in trying to keep Jose. We don't have kids. And as we both know, you can't keep a man with children. Let him enjoy his blonde. As for her, I wish her good luck in building bridges with Antonina. Good for you, handling it this way. But if your mood takes a downturn or you get lonely, call me. I'll rush over to you." "Thanks, Alona. I just need to be alone for a bit. Plus, I won't be bored. I have to gather Jose's things and change the lock on the door. You know, I want him to understand. I won't forgive betrayal." "You're smart," Alona praised her older sister and offered once more. "But seriously, if you need anything, call me without hesitation, anytime." The sisters said their goodbyes, and Jasmine began packing up her husband's things. Who would have thought that her anniversary evening would end with emptying the shelves in the closet? Methodically and calmly, she filled Jose's gym bag with his things, then moved on to some large bags. Jasmine only regretted not thinking to take the sparkling wine away from the intruder. A couple of sips of that bubbly would have made the process even more amusing. The humiliating gift with the cosmetics also found its way into one of the bags, along with shaving foam, a toothbrush, a razor, and Jose's personalized towel. The rose, which had remained untouched on the kitchen table, was tossed into the trash. She dragged the filled bags toward the door, and during one of her short trips, suddenly remembered her plan to change the lock. Jasmine browsed through listings for private locksmiths, read reviews, many of which seemed to be copied and pasted, and decided to hire a locksmith based on a recommendation from someone she knew. Remembering that the owner of the tailor shop had recently been laughing about a jammed lock and her neighbor, Jasmine recalled how the man, a former bear trainer, had helped solve the problem in just a few minutes. He made sure to mention that he had long since left his criminal past behind. Of course, Jasmine didn't want to disturb her boss with a phone call in the evening, but she was determined to see the matter through to a proper finish. Moreover, if she delayed changing the lock until morning, there was a high chance she'd have to ask for time off again, which wasn't ideal during a busy period. Summoning her courage, she dialed her boss's number, and Francisca, upon hearing the request, promised to send over the contact of her neighbor. His name is Enrique. When you reach him, just tell him it's from me. He's a good guy, no nonsense, so don't worry. I'll try to give him a heads up, but it's not guaranteed he'll be home. His hands are golden, so he's usually running around on call. Maybe you'll get lucky, and he'll swing by today. Soon after the brief conversation with her boss, Jasmine received a text message with the locksmith's number. Luckily, the former criminal had apparently already been warned by his neighbor. After confirming the type of lock that needed replacing, he promised to come in half an hour. The cheerful, lean man of indeterminate age quickly completed the job, graciously accepted the payment from Jasmine, and even tried to give her change, but she stopped him. "This is for the urgency and your responsiveness," she said. Enrique beamed, quickly and almost invisibly tucking the bill somewhere, then nodded toward the bags and packages and offered, "If you need, I can take out the trash." Jasmine thanked the considerate expert trainer and declined, although for a split second, she did have the urge to get back at Jose by throwing out his things. During the workday, she tried not to think about her husband, and her boss didn't ask any unnecessary questions. At lunchtime, her sister called and offered to come over as support, just in case she needed help handling Jose if he got upset. You never know what kind of nonsense he might do out of anger. "David and I will keep him in check, and we'll support you," she said. Jasmine declined. "I'll manage. Thanks for your concern, Alona." "All right, but if anything comes up, call me immediately. And when it's all over, when that little jerk runs off, let me know too." Jasmine promised to keep her sister updated and, finishing the conversation, immersed herself in work. She didn't even go for lunch, wanting to avoid being late in the evening. It was very important to her to get home before Jose, so he wouldn't be waiting by the closed door, causing a scene for the amusement of the neighbors. Luckily, it worked out. She heard the sound of a key turning in the lock while she was sitting in the kitchen. However, the door didn't open for her husband. Jose didn't waste any time and called Jasmine on the phone. Only then did she hang up and put the old chain on the door, the one her husband had promised to take down but, thankfully, never found the time to do. "Hello. What is this, Jasmine? I'm hungry, tired, and just want to take a bath and relax, and you're giving me some kind of quest. Are you hiding your lover or something?" Jose chuckled and ordered, "All right, enough joking around. Let me in already. And start warming up dinner." Jose really did look tired, and Jasmine found it so amusing that she ironically pitied him. "Oh, poor thing, you spent $100,000 on a phone for your lover, and she didn't even feed you. What an ungrateful woman you have." Through the small crack in the door, Jasmine noticed a brief flash of embarrassment on Jose's face, but he quickly regained his composure. "I don't understand what you're talking about. You found time to joke now? Open the door, please. I'm actually really hungry and tired." "Wait, Jose. First, you're going to listen to me calmly. I've packed all your things, and I'm asking you to take them quietly, without any drama. I'm even willing to wait while you call a taxi so you can take everything in one go. Are you crazy or something? Jasmine, this isn't funny. Open the door, I'm telling you. I don't know what's got you so angry, but I assure you, you're mistaken. I'm completely clean with you. Jose, stop pretending to be so innocent. You know, I wouldn't even be upset if you handed me some random set for our anniversary. Who knows, maybe you remembered late, or you were embarrassed to come back empty-handed, or you just couldn't think of anything suitable and decided to give a practical gift. But I know that yesterday, during lunch, you gave your little girlfriend a very expensive smartphone. And that was on the day of our celebration. I won't even mention that in the evening you ran away from me, taking the delicacies with you. After such pettiness and blatant betrayal, I can't even stand to talk to you. Well, here's the deal. Either I open the door now, and you calmly take everything, or I'll start throwing your things out one by one through this crack. Or, as an alternative, I'll throw them off the balcony. Choose which option you prefer. You're mistaken, Jasmine. Let me in, and we can talk calmly. We have nothing to talk about. You'll take your things and say goodbye, as they say. The only question is, how are you going to pick them up? Will you pick them up under the balcony, gather them one by one from the floor, or quietly, peacefully, and carefully carry them in bags? From the tone of his wife's voice, Jose understood that convincing her otherwise wasn't going to happen right now, and he mumbled meekly, "I'll take everything in bags. Open the door." Jasmine let him in, deciding that he was soon going to be former in her life, and gestured toward his belongings, which were stacked in disarray along the hallway wall in several layers. "Call a taxi, you can't carry all of this by hand." Looking Jasmine in the eyes, Jose pleaded, "Listen, really, let's talk. You're throwing me out with nowhere to go. This isn't my problem, Jose. I don't see, and I can't even think of any reason why I should tolerate you being here," Jasmine said firmly. "I repeat, take your things and go wherever you want." "I don't want to go anywhere, I'm fine here," Jose replied, flashing a smug smile. He reached for his wife to hug her, but she raised her hands in a warning gesture and advised, "You'd better call a taxi, or I'll call the police." "Actually, I'm registered here," Jose said boldly, deciding to stay in his wife's apartment no matter what, attempting to convince her to reconcile. "And, by the way, I love you, too." However, his confession sounded unconvincing, and Jasmine suggested, "Last time, I'm asking you nicely, leave. Don't test my patience, my frugal one. Go to the one you gave the smartphone to, she's your favorite. As for me, I should be happy with a soap set. Why are you fixated on that phone? Why do you think I don't have the right to give gifts? I earn my own money, and I give it as I please. That's enough. You ask me for receipts for groceries, and yet you think you have the right to dispose of your income as you wish. Very original, but unfair." Jasmine started kicking the nearest bag toward the door with her foot, and Jose got angry. "What's with your arrogance? I'll take care of it all now." Fuming with rage, he began pulling the bags one by one out onto the landing, while simultaneously typing something on his smartphone. Watching her love story come to an end, Jasmine didn't feel any bitterness yet and involuntarily compared herself to her mother. Her mother had it much worse. She had children in her arms and the wound of betrayal by both a friend and a husband. So Jasmine knew she had to keep her composure and not show Jose how painful it was, how wasted the last 7 years had been. After finishing moving his things to the elevator, Jose, without saying a word of goodbye, squeezed into the cabin and went downstairs. She called her sister to report how the breakup went and then headed to the kitchen. She drank coffee without tasting it, watching a comedy show on her laptop without understanding the jokes. Her heart felt empty, and there were no thoughts in her head. An hour after Jose left, Jasmine received a call from her mother-in-law, Antonina, who began to voice her anger. "What on earth are you thinking? Why did you kick Jose out? Is it because he's a good son and helps me?" "No, Antonina," Jasmine replied. "I kicked Jose out because he's a bad husband." "Jasmine, you're wrong. If a man helps his mother, that's no reason to throw him out of the house like a mangy cat. I don't know what you've made up, but yesterday Jose came over to help me because I needed to replace the water filter, and to do that, we had to disassemble almost half of the kitchen set. The layout was very inconvenient. After that, I fed him, and he rested after dinner, falling asleep until morning. So, I'm the one to blame that Jose didn't return to you last night, and you just kicked him out without a second thought. That's wrong, don't you think?" Until Antonina started defending her son so stubbornly, Jasmine hadn't even thought about catching her in a lie. But, growing frustrated, she decided to ask her mother-in-law a provocative question. By the way, Jose brought you some cranberry juice and dumplings with a new recipe yesterday. How did you like them? Antonina, unsuspecting of any trickery, began praising her daughter-in-law's culinary skills. They were delicious, Jasmine. Just the right amount of seasoning and salt. The cranberry juice was amazing too. Maybe you'll share the recipe sometime, if it's not some kind of secret. Clearly, Antonina had no idea what exactly her son had brought. After this slip-up, Jasmine was convinced that Jose had not stopped by his mom's house yesterday with a container of fish steaks and a bottle of sparkling wine, as she had suspected. Antonina tried to defend her son, but did so clumsily. From the speaker, Jasmine heard a muffled voice. Jose had likely overheard part of the conversation and realized his mother had put herself in an awkward position. Her mother-in-law began to awkwardly backpedal. "Oh, Jasmine, I think I misheard you and mixed things up. Jose brought fish, right?" As if sharing her host's frustration, Jasmine's smartphone screen blinked, turned off, and then began restarting. Jasmine sighed. Now my mother-in-law will think I intentionally or angrily cut off the conversation. However, Jasmine didn't bother calling back to explain. Let the mother and son deal with it, she had more important things to do. She needed to fill the shelves left empty by Jose's belongings so they wouldn't stand there mocking her with their emptiness. The phone rebooted, and almost immediately, she received a call from Jose. Antonina was apparently not nearby, and Jose's voice sounded loud and irritated. "Well, are you happy now? Did you manage to catch my mom in contradictions? Jose, don't make me guilty for the fact that you can't lie convincingly. Don't blame me for the fact that you didn't have a proper cover story ready with your mom to back up your actions." "Well, this is one thing that's not my fault at all. It's still not fair, setting traps for my mom," Jose grumbled. But Jasmine immediately countered. "Who's talking? I didn't suggest giving a smartphone to another woman on our anniversary. But getting a cheap cosmetics set on my special day, knowing that another woman is happily playing with the smartphone, in my opinion, is unfair. Anyway, I don't want to talk about it, and I don't even want to think about it. Please, let's not spoil our past with arguments and mutual reproaches for the sake of everything good that we had between us." Perhaps Jose expected more reproaches from Jasmine, but her request seemed to have caught him off guard. "Fine, there's no point in talking about it now. By the way, I want to take the table that's on the balcony, and also the jigsaw." "No problem, Jose, just let me know when you're coming to pick them up." Muttering something incomprehensible, Jose ended the call. After the conversation, Jasmine felt a deep sadness. The man she had considered her support, who had proven himself reliable and faithful during difficult times, suddenly turned out to be just like so many others. However, before she could dwell on her husband's betrayal, or the treachery of men in general, the doorbell rang. The younger sister rushed to the rescue. Behind Alona stood David, who clearly felt out of place. "Come in," Jasmine greeted them warmly, though she wasn't sure she wanted to be around anyone, even close family, at that moment. Alona gave her companion a command. "David, take the bags to the kitchen, and I won't keep you any longer. If you can, pick me up tomorrow morning to take me to work." "Got it," David responded, playfully saluting. He quickly took off his stylish winter sneakers, followed Alona's instructions, and soon left the apartment. The sisters didn't drag out their visit, but they enjoyed flipping through old photo albums, from which true happiness smiled back at them. "Don't worry, Jasmine, luck will smile on us," Alona said. "I'm not worried, just upset," Jasmine replied. "I get it. I don't even know what's harder to bear, when your husband betrays you or when your loved one just won't get around to marrying you. It's painful. Men, what's wrong with them? They're always looking for something better for themselves." The question hung in the air because finding an answer was no easier than understanding what women wanted. About 2 weeks had passed since Jasmine had kicked Jose out. He hadn't shown up for his tools or the table that Jasmine had slowly disassembled and broken down into parts to make it easier to transport. He hadn't called either. However, one day Antonina walked into the atelier. She greeted Jasmine politely and, noticing that Jasmine wasn't busy with customers, practically threw herself into her arms and asked, "Let's go outside and talk," calmly. Francisca nodded at Jasmine, allowing her to leave her workplace. Once outside, both women were silent, watching the large snowflakes swirl in the air. Antonina clearly didn't know how to start the conversation, so she began slowly. "Is there a lot of work right now?" "Yes, Antonina, it's the busiest season," Jasmine replied. "Everyone wants to look good for the holidays, and many are preparing for their corporate events, trying to get everything ready as if it should have been done yesterday." Antonina expressed concern. "Oh, Jasmine, you're not taking care of yourself. You need to rest too." Jasmine couldn't think of a way to respond to these comments and waited for Antonina to get to the point of the conversation. "Jasmine, please forgive my foolish Jose. Understand, every man can slip up, even the most faithful ones. Jose is staying with me now, and I'm even afraid to look at him. He got all mixed up, and now he's gotten himself into something that he regrets. Antonina, I understand your desire to reconcile me with Jose, but our family is broken. I don't know what version he told you, but believe me, I had a very good reason to end things with him." Her mother-in-law smiled softly. "Jasmine, in family life, you need to be more flexible, to find ways to avoid the sharp edges. It's very important to preserve love. It's always easier to destroy than to build. Think about it. Isn't Jose a good man? No, he really is a good man. Otherwise, I wouldn't have married him. And I wouldn't have trusted him so blindly for 6 years." Well then, Antonina rejoiced and switched to moral persuasion. "Look at the beauty around you. Even our gloomy city is transforming. The lights will turn on this evening. And everything, like magic, will become fairy tale-like. The holidays are coming, New Year, Christmas. Why refuse to do a good deed and forgive Jose? Please, Jasmine, fulfill my wish. It's really not hard to do." Jasmine was outraged. "What, am I Santa Claus, here to grant wishes?" "Jasmine, but if you don't care about my health, at least think about Jose. You've lived together for so many years. Doesn't it matter to you that he's now spending most of his time lying on the couch, drinking beer by the liter every evening? Talk to him like you would a close one, so he can relax and feel like a person again. Antonina, it's not my problem that Jose didn't think about the consequences of his betrayal. By the way, it hurts me too. Well, see, Jasmine, everything would be better if you and Jose met and talked in private. Invite him over. Drink coffee, talk. You need each other. Honestly, I'm tired of convincing you that it's over between me and Jose. Let that blonde girl, who he gave the expensive smartphone to with his "to my beloved" card, take care of him and drink coffee with him." After these words, Antonina seemed to lose her composure. Oh, that blonde doll, a selfish airhead who only thinks about herself. She needs everyone to revolve around her. She treats Jose like a bank machine, arrogant and clumsy, and to top it off, she's rude. She came and just sat down, like she was visiting, didn't even offer to help me in the kitchen. No proper job. She doesn't even have a chance of getting one because she has no proper education and doesn't plan on getting it. She works occasionally as a promoter and dreams of becoming an actress. Yeah, like the cinema is waiting for her at 24. You have to start earlier to succeed. She's from another town, renting an apartment with a friend. As Jasmine listened to the list of the other woman's faults, she suddenly realized that the true reason for her mother-in-law's peacemaking attempt wasn't simply concern for her son. Antonina, I understand now. You're feeling cramped in your apartment with Jose, and the prospect of a new daughter-in-law is looming, so you want to send him back to me. Why are you being so rude? I just want to save my son from this predator, and you owe it to me to help with this. Jasmine was spared from having to listen to the demands that almost sounded like orders from her soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law by Francisca. She appeared at the door and informed Jasmine that she needed to go inside. I'm sorry, but we're actually in the middle of a workday. The client will be here soon." Antonina wanted to say something else, but she left, biting her lip. The beautiful winter cityscape no longer brought her joy. The daughter-in-law, who had once seemed like a naive fool, had shown some backbone. But even her principled stance now seemed like nothing compared to the brazen persistence of her son's new girlfriend. A few days before New Year's Eve, Jose, after a prior phone call, came to Jasmine's place to pick up his remaining things. He was holding a small bag in his hands. Without meeting her gaze, he handed it to his wife and said, "Here, instead of your old smartphone. It's not a flagship, but it's a good and reliable model." "Thanks, Jose. But if you think that I'll forgive you for this phone and reconsider the divorce, then you better take it back. You know I won't forgive infidelity." Jose, having gathered his things, left Jasmine's apartment for good. Their divorce went through without any complications, and when they occasionally ran into each other around town, Jasmine felt neither anger nor sadness anymore. She believed that happiness was waiting for her in the future. And it happened. At her sister's wedding, which finally took place after David proposed to her, Jasmine met a man and married him.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.